Brandon has been on the show before. He's co-host of the podcast Redefine Recovery, which is just a really great faith-based podcast about recovery and addiction and struggles and a lot more than that too. But that's kind of how it started in the foundation of it. And Brandon, when I asked you what you wanted to talk about today, you said helplessness. And first off, where does that term come out of, and why is that kind of front of mind for you right now?
Okay, it's powerlessness.
I'm sorry, powerlessness.
Yeah, you're good. It's the same thing. In essence, it is the same thing. So it's the foundation of the 12 steps, and it's really the foundation of our Christian life. But in the first step, it talks about this word powerless. It says that we're powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors. And I think that word powerless is really misunderstood. Oh, it's kind of a recovery word with air quotes, and I think the common people don't really understand it, and I just really want to highlight what this idea of powerlessness. This powerless, like I said, it's the cornerstone of our Christian faith. What it is the Apostle Paul talked about it in Romans 7, right? He says, I don't understand myself because the thing that I want to do, I can't do. But the thing that I don't want to do, I keep doing. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. You see, this powerlessness, a lot of people think, oh, I can't be around alcohol or I can't be around drugs. And yeah, that's kind of it to a point, but what it more speaks of is our innate leaning towards doing the things that are wrong, right? And Paul talks about it. It's the sin that lives in me, right? And so when we talk about this powerlessness, what it is it's not necessarily staying away from drugs and alcohol, though that could be a piece of it, or even talking about lust or anger or a victim mentality. What it is accepting reality, right? And the reality is that I'm not always in control of people in my life, circumstances in my life, and definitely my own behavior sometimes, right? So what we're doing in this step one and what really is foundational in our Christian life is admitting that I'm not in control and embracing honesty and humility. Right, so there's in Hebrews 2, at the end of Hebrews 2 and starting into chapter 3, it says, because Jesus was tempted, he's able to help those who are being tempted, right? And then at the beginning of chapter 3, it says, therefore, fix your thoughts on Jesus. So what it boils down to is not trying to do better. It's not, when I'm tempted, I'm going to try harder to not drink. I'm going to try harder to not look at porn. I'm going to try harder to not yell at my kids. It's admitting that I don't really have that capability to do that, and sitting back and saying, hey, you know what, God, this is out of my control. I'm powerless in this area, so I'm just going to fix my thoughts on Jesus and not try harder, but let Jesus become more in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what we do sometimes in the church is once we are considered a Christian, once we are considered to be, on the path to following God, and whether you were born and raised in the church and gave your heart to Jesus very young, or this was a turnaround, radical, born again type situation in your life, I think what we tend to do is sell ourselves this lie that we hit a certain point and then that stops. So it's like, okay, I've stopped struggling with porn, or I've stopped drinking to excess, or I've stopped lying to people for personal gain because I'm a Christian, or whatever it is. And now I've been a Christian for 8 years, and that's done. So if I struggle with these things again, I got to keep them quiet and I got to keep them secret.
Yes, absolutely. That is completely the lie. Because the truth is, and it's the truth of the Christian life, that I don't have a corner on this thing. I have not arrived, right? Like I'm never the saint. Like I will always struggle with this, and my struggle may not be a minute-to-minute struggle, how it was in the beginning. It may not be a day-to-day struggle, but there's always going to be that tendency, that thought will pop up, and you have to give that to Jesus. You're 100% right, though.
So how does that mentality kind of fit into this kind of traditional idea where we go, we can overcome our struggles, we can overcome sin, we have power over sin? Like I think on the surface it sounds like those ideas don't match up, but how do they in your mind?
So how they match up in my mind is we do have power over sin in Jesus, right? And so the foundation, the first step of our recovery, and I think that translates into the Christian life, is it's not me trying to fight the sin. It's me surrendering to Jesus and allowing the Holy Spirit to fill me and overflow in my life. And that's how I have power over sin. It's the Holy Spirit in me has power over sin. And that's what we're basing this recovery on.
We love getting to talk to you about this stuff, man. Thank you for opening up your heart and sharing it with us in a way that we can't always get into. So we appreciate you, man. Brandon's the co-host of Redefine Recovery. Check it out. They're on iTunes. Where else can you find it? That's where I get it.
Spotify, SoundCloud. Those are the main ones.
Anywhere you get
podcasts.
podcasts.
Check out our Facebook page.
Yeah, give them a like and connect with them. Again, Redefine Recovery. Brandon, we love you. We love having you on the show. Thanks, man.